For those of you who do not know Dr. Mahapatra, I'm looking at his own Bits Pilani um, page, and I think this is very eloquently written. So I'm not going to be wasting time writing my own summary. Basically, Dr. Mahapatra is an associate professor in the Department of Humanities and Social Sciences at BITS Pilani, Hyderabad campus. He is an ELT person, which is very good for our discipline. And his research interests are teacher development, digital educational technology, and educational language policy. I will not spend too much time reading something that you will find when you go to the site. So to his webpage, I think I will just now give the floor over to Dr. Mahapatra so that he can tell us and he can guide us through this process of discovery. So I welcome you all and thank you for being here. And I look forward to a very engaging session. So over to you,
Thank
Santosh.
you.
Uh,
Thank you
there,
so
Sorry, just one second. There's a lot of work that Dr. Mahapatra has done. His research interests are in digital technology assessment, teacher development, and education policy. These are very interesting areas that he works on. So I would just encourage all of you to visit and learn. You'll do an online search and you will know about his work. So just that. Thank you, Santosh.
Thank you. What I'll do is I'll just introduce you to the idea of what I mean by judicious, and then what I mean by ethical, and then we will start talking about how you can use uh, you know AI tools ethically and judiciously for research purposes. This will be limited to what the kind of research we are doing, educational research mostly, but kind of, I mean, you can apply in other, I mean, I don't think it's very different for people outside the area of language teaching also. If it's somebody from literature, somebody from, I mean, some kind of other areas also, if they are into their PhD and they're doing their PhD and or they're researching language education, probably they will also be able to benefit from this. So I'll share my screen to start with. Is it visible?
Yes,
Thank
it
you.
is.
Thank you. We'll talk about judicious and ethical use, and you can stop me wherever you want. Just stop me, okay? You want an explanation because there will be some amount of demonstration. This presentation will involve some amount of a demonstration where I'll show you a few things, but you can also stop me and ask me if you have questions. Before we started this, it got slightly delayed because from my side, because I got a little carried away with learning Ohomia. I was trying to learn Assamese from my co-pilot, and it was teaching really well. And was teaching me how to say how are you and how to say I'm doing well. What is happening today? How is your evening going? All those things I was trying to learn, and I was trying different languages. I was trying Odia, I was trying Tamil, I was trying Marathi, and it was able to teach me those things. So I was having a conversation, and you can choose the tone also, the kind of tone you would like to use. You want it to be informal, semi-formal, or very formal, and it can also judge your pronunciation. You can talk to it and ask if your pronunciation is good. Can you comment on my pronunciation? How much would you give against, if you use these rubrics, how much would I get for my pronunciation or my ability to organize information or something like that? So your oral text can also be assessed by AI tools. So it's very easy, and you can do it for hundreds of students. You can do it for 5 students, 10 students yourself. anybody and you want to improve things, it can also tell you where you need to improve. Let's say it was it was telling me that your long vowels are not really long. Can you actually stretch them further? So, but it gave me a good grade, saying that I say that against CFR rubrics, where would you place me? It was telling me that you would go around C1 level. We'll place you at C1. So I would say that okay. So some kind of uh, you can use it for multiple purposes and say that this can be also part of your research, and we'll learn how what you are saying can be part of your research. So let's go ahead. So my plan is first I'll define judicious and ethical so that we are on the same plane, we are on the same page, and then we go to the next one. We'll talk about how the kind of applications we have in research, and then talk about a bit of research that has been done and what opportunities you have if you want to research this area. Then probably you may be interested in exploring some of these things. Um, Okay, so when we talk about AI here, I am specifically focusing on generative AI, and generative AI is something that is able to generate text, images, videos, codes, and all those things based on input data, like human beings, exactly like human beings. Our neurons function in a certain way. So you train a child. This is red, this is blue, and then another fine day you say that this is sun, this is moon, this is that, and another day you talk about Arey, this is you look like a monster or something like that. One more day, and one fine evening when you are looking at the sunset with the child says the sun here. The sun looks like let's say sindoor bindi or something like that. It says suddenly, and then you say that how come you got that thing here? Sun comparing sun with sindoor and bindi and all that. Then you realize that you have already talked about the sun, you have talked about the similes, you have also familiarized the child with, let's say, with red rose or red color or something like that, and then child has put together and now it's able to create new things. So the same thing happens with AI. Generative AI follows the exact same mechanics and then generates data for us, new kind of generate data. So LLMs as large language models, like ChatGPT and all, which I'll show you a little later, they are kind of an advanced form of generative AI where you have more data to play with and more patterns to play with. Learning capacities are much higher there. So when we talk about judicious, I'm talking about here somebody who is able to differentiate between what is right and what is not, who can make good judgment, and somebody who is who is wise. I'll tell you how, when it comes to research, what being wise means and what being reasonable and being able to make good judgments, being sensible, being careful, and being aware of potential risks, what these terms mean for a researcher. Uh, for us, for example, if you are judicious and if you know the potential risk, you won't copy and paste from any sources, because AI is not, I mean, like, there is no detection tool and it's going free right now. I'll submit it because nobody is able to catch me. The problem is your text will remain in the database, and tomorrow somebody will find out that you have copied from some source, and maybe your thesis will be rejected, your paper will be withdrawn from the portal, you will be humiliated, you will lose your job probably, you will be in jail probably for copyright violations, you will be fined for something, your future might, you will be doomed probably. I don't want to kind of make you feel really bad about this thing, but I'm just telling you what being judicious means here. So if you are judicious, you understand that there are future risks, there are future problems that that may arise due to your irresponsible use of AI tools or Gen AI tools. So being judicious here means being smart, being careful, being sensible, and being aware of potential risks, which involve, uh, knowing about what will happen if I do this today. maybe today I'll escape. Today my supervisor is not, uh, maybe seriously AI literate and all that. Probably I'll escape. So she or he may not be able to catch me. I'll escape, but tomorrow when they catch me, I'll lose my job, my salary, my future, my everything. So good thing to learn, what is appropriate and what is acceptable and follow those steps. Second one is being ethical, which has to do with being transparent and responsible, which has to do with when you use AI, it's better to tell the journal or your supervisor or the thesis people that these are the purposes for which I have used AI. If you declare it, there is no risk. Maintaining a record where you're using, if you keep using, you might forget that you copied from that source and then paraphrase this source. There will be a lot more trouble for you. So it's important to keep a track of where you are using, how much you are using, for what purposes you are using. All those things, if you make notes and keep a record, maintain a record, it might be helpful, because even if you forget, you can always go back and refer to your notebook and see whether this is acceptable, and whether you would like to change something because it's not acceptable. And then exploring what is acceptable before using. Possibly you need to know how to use AI ethically and how to use AI judiciously before you start using. I won't suggest going and exploring while using for research, and that may not be a great idea, except for just searching for information or something, searching for ideas or something. But beyond that, it may not be a great idea. Probably it's good idea to explore first properly, know what it is, know the legal, acceptable or academic, non-academic, all kinds of usage, and then get into this zone. Then verifying information, because AI has a reputation of supplying biased information, wrong information, fake information. So probably it's a good idea to verify what you are getting from AI. And the next one is limiting the use to acceptable limits. I mean, there is, for certain purposes this is allowed. So you learn what are those purposes, and you keep your use to those limits. Don't go beyond those limits, because that can be really problematic. This is, I call, textbook dangers. I kind of am aware of a university that published a lot of books from distance education center, and those books were quite popular when I was growing up as a student, as a researcher, and those books were quite popular, and they were easy to understand, easy to read, easy to understand, easy to follow, and those books are really interesting. And I always thought those books were originally written by the authors. They claim, who claimed that they wrote the book. But later, when we had plagiarism detection tools, people detected that those books were kind of sections from those books. Most of these sections were copied and pasted from several sources. So there started the problem. And the university's name and fame, everything is at stake right now. And the same thing happened with a book writer who wrote a book for, let's say, Oxford University or Cambridge University Press, and several portions of the book were copied from different sources. The person always thought that people may not have access to these books, and the person can go scot-free, but that happened later. People got them. I don't know what happened and all that, but yeah, that I coined this term textbook dangers, because I can relate that to that textbook that was designed earlier. In research, when it comes to research, how many of you use AI for research purposes? Can you just say yes in the chat box? Can you write yes if you're using? Okay, we have one person. Anybody else? Out of curiosity, you are using Jyotirmoy? Fine. I'll take it. It's a good thing that you should be curious about this and should use. Then you learn also how to use this. Anybody else? Vipanchi says yes. And I'm not getting a few other names. Saima, Anamika. No, not yet. Okay. So let's talk about where we can use and how we can use. Okay. Okay, Nilimoy says no. Fine. So we can use for these purposes to start with, and more idea generation is always there. You can always generate ideas from ChatGPT, but the problem with ChatGPT is slightly when it doesn't have access to fresh data. So whatever suggestions you get for research may not be really current as such. So if the topic has to be current and the gap has to be fresh gap and you are trying to explore probably, it may not be a great idea to go to ChatGPT and ask what could be a good gap for conducting a research on this topic. So may not be a great idea. I'll show you how that works. Let's go there and check. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, is it ChatGPT right now?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so I'll ask ChatGPT, can you give me a topic to work on in my PhD? It should be related to the use of ChatGPT. So it says that how does ChatGPT influence undergraduate students' writing development? Does AI generated feedback improve student revision habits? I think these two have been explored areas more or less. You have solid research on these AI-assisted writing and student learning. Ethical and pedagogical challenges of AI in education, how do educators perceive and navigate academic integrity? We have research on this, and what frameworks can help teachers integrate ChatGPT ethically into that? That's too broad a question. One more. Can AI generated responses help students develop stronger analytical skills? May not be exactly same for, I mean, something for your PhD right now. May not be for language specifically, but if you can specify and add language skills, you can check. Role of AI in assessment and feedback compared to human grading, it's being done right now. This is still a fresh topic. A lot of things are being done. So some topics you see where you get some broad ideas, but not really something that you can take and use as a research question and explore in your PhD. It will be kind of tricky because sometimes it's too broad. Sometimes you may not be aware of whether there is a gap in this area or not, which means which takes us back to what we were talking about earlier, which is you may not be able to generate great ideas from ChatGPT, but if you have ideas, you may ask questions and it may help you. Let's say you are working on right now how to, let's say, translanguaging is the broad area, and you are working on how you can use translanguaging pedagogy in a, let's say, history classroom or something like that, social science, some classroom. For what purpose? Let's say for asking questions. How impactful are, or how does asking questions using translingual techniques improve students' understanding of historical concepts or philosophical concepts, something like that, and then see if that works out. Let's say if you make it that specific, probably it will work, but if it's not specific, and then you have to go back and check how much research has been done and then what you can do about it. But in many cases, it may not work because it will be too broad. And if you ask that question, it still remains broad and you may not have a basis. You have to see the process we follow to identify gaps and design a research question is we review the literature and then identify the gap, then identify the what kind of pinpoint an area, then think about our hypothesis or our assumptions. Then we ask research questions. But here, if you start with research questions, it then going back and identifying the gaps, it will be a kind of odd thing to do. So I won't go there to ask ChatGPT or any other tool to identify questions for me or gaps for me. That may not be a great idea. However, what you can do is you can take help of AI tools like ChatGPT or Copilot to do your literature review. It's possible. Then how do you do that? If you ask ChatGPT to read loads of pages and tell you the gist, let's say identify how, I mean, what the research paper tells us about some specific answers. If you ask, it will probably read and answer your question, but you should be able to verify those things by going through the paper and understanding, I mean, trying to understand I mean, what the paper is about, and then go back and match your answer with AI answer and see if there is a consistency to your assumption. I mean, like, you think that probably AI ChatGPT reads well and gives me the right kind of gist, but it may not be always true. So make sure you verify, you read and verify, and then go to ChatGPT and ask it to do it. If you see that there's consistently you are getting good results, probably it'll be a good idea to ask ChatGPT to do a little bit of reading. And so there is a current, I mean, recently there's somebody published a paper on reading with AI. So it may be a good idea. You read, ChatGPT reads, and helps you. You run through this and think that this is the main idea of the paper. You note it down and ask ChatGPT to do the same and note down something like that. And you can be very specific. I'll show you how to do that. Let's say I have to upload a file. Let's say PDF. I have to find a copyright free PDF. See where I can use something. These are the articles I'm reviewing, so cannot share. What else can we share? Okay, generative AI in manuscript, ESP, report. Not getting something that I can share. Just let me check if I can get something. Give me a second. If I can get something and show you how to do that. Yeah, I have to get my own article. It will be easy then. Perfect. I'll show you. So I'm downloading an article and checking. This is my own article, so no, I know the gist here. Can you identify the attitude of the British towards teaching, towards providing English education to Indians? Okay. It's still reading my article, reading the document. So the first thing it says that Indians was complex and often contradictory, which is absolutely spot on. So it's able to read and understand colonial justification and control, cultural hegemony and nationalism, ambivalence and social impact. Yeah. So two of these things are absolutely spot on. One is partially right. We didn't talk about the one of these, I mean, exclusively, but yeah. Um, So what the point I was trying to point, I mean, the point I was trying to make here was that you give the right kind of information, I mean, give right kind of instruction to ChatGPT, and then ask it to read a paper. And then if you read the paper and you find a similar thing, you know that it's able to do a decent job, and then keep giving. And there, after you get the gist and all, make sure you rewrite it using your own language and add citation there. Don't forget it, because if you forget it and start using, then there will be a problem, because you won't be able to actually build a proper literature review. So I would ask you to use this along with the ChatGPT. I mean, use your own intelligence to identify the main idea and use ChatGPT for some time, and then allow ChatGPT to function on its own. But there is another way of doing it, which might also work really well. You can use a qualitative data analysis software like Taguet. I can type here. This is called Taguet. I'll give you the link. I'll share the link in the chat box. Anybody who has been using Taguet for some time? Anybody who has used Taguet? Not yet. Okay. So you go here and then go to register now. And then if you register, you will get your username and all. I have the username and all, so I log in here. And let's say we have, we have, let's say, interviews, we have data, we had, earlier we had data. So I will take some old data and then see if this can be used somewhere. Okay. And Modish is already a running project, so I cannot use. Let's say I say teacher interview somewhere. So I say one teacher if you take here. And let's say what you do is you add a document, which means you click on that, upload a document. After that, what you do is you select this portion and you can code the data. This is for data analysis you use, but the same thing can be done with your text. So you upload, let's say 20 or 30 articles on a particular topic. And from the topic, you can start highlighting. You can give it a code name. So whatever code names you have. So let's say this portion of the article is related to, you take 2 lines. This is related to attitude of people towards English in India. So say that attitude of the people. So if you keep adding like that, from 20 articles, 5 or 6 people have talked about attitude towards English, of people towards English in India. That becomes, and with, you will get with all the highlights you will get. So if you go to highlights, you will get that, and from which document you have taken, it will come clearly. The document name will be here. So whatever document you have used, the names are here, and you will get the portions that are useful. And that can be used for writing the literature review really, really fast. And this will take a while to master. It's not very difficult to use. It's free also. You don't have to pay for this. This is entirely free. So I would encourage you to use, again, ChatGPT plus use Taguet both if you are doing a literature review. When you do the literature review with ChatGPT, I uploaded one article. You can upload more articles, let's say 5 or 10 articles. And you can ask ChatGPT to identify the most suitable articles or articles that are close to the topic you are giving. So if you can define the topic well, let's say I'm working on attitude of people towards Telugu in Telangana or in Hyderabad vis-a-vis their attitude towards English. And if I upload 10 articles and then ask which of these articles deal with this topic, then it will identify and tell me out of these 20 or 30 articles, these 3 articles deal in some way with the topic you have mentioned. So something that you can explore, and once you explore, once it identifies 3 or 4, your duty should be to go and verify whether these what the claim is correct. Because if you let ChatGPT handle the entire reading part, you will not be able to read and understand things. Your reading will, your ability to read and think critically will come down. You must remember that ChatGPT cannot function critically. It cannot tell you how to evaluate a document critically, how to go through, I mean, read between lines and identify the very, kind of subtle nuances of writing and identify patterns from there. It may not be able to do those kind of things. You go with what is given to it. That means the text data it can verify. But beyond text, if there are things that are written and that they mean things in cultural context, in social context, and beyond that, it will be very difficult unless you give very clear instructions to ChatGPT. So as you use, you also master how to handle ChatGPT well, and you will be able to do certain things. Now, when you do this, somebody will ask me, is it acceptable by a journal if I tell them that I have used ChatGPT to develop my review of literature, to identify, to evaluate, and select sources, but writing is mine? Will a journal accept that? I think they will. I mean, I'm reviewing for around 10, 15 journals right now, and all are in, I mean, kind of top ranked journals. So, no, I mean, I don't think I have received anywhere any comment related to that. I've always, people have declared and it is accepted by the journal, and they would like you to be honest with them. So, I think it's a good idea to declare that I have used ChatGPT for evaluating and selecting my sources. The next part is identifying patterns, trends, and gaps. Can you identify patterns, trends, and gaps from your data or from the literature review, from text? You can do both. I think it's not not difficult to do that. I'll show you how I did that. This is a paper I presented earlier in the History of English Language Education conference, where I uploaded a lot of data from starting with colonial times to modern day, and then asked ChatGPT to identify some of the patterns, some of the codes and themes. Codes, it could not identify many of the codes, but it was able to identify some of the themes. The approximate frequency was, it helped me identify when I gave it textual clues. But you can do that, but it will be very difficult to do that. If you want me to demonstrate it, I'll also demonstrate it how you can do that. But we'll keep it for later. If you want me to demonstrate, I'll go on and demonstrate it later. But this can be done if you go to a piece, let's say 20 or 30 articles or 20 or 30 documents, and you want to identify the themes, categories, and all that, it can do that. But you can ask the next question, is it acceptable? No, it's not acceptable if it does the entire job. And you take those themes and sub-themes and mention in the paper, it won't be acceptable. Which means what? Which means you need to do the job along with ChatGPT. The next question is, how do I do that? You can take text and it will give you patterns, but your duty is to go through the text, go through the patterns and verify randomly from, let's say, around 30 to 40% of the text you can verify, and then check the words and phrases that have been used by ChatGPT. Probably you need to modify those and use your own language to talk about those patterns. And can you generate the number of codes? That will be very, very risky because these are text driven. Okay, so if you give idea to ChatGPT about the text and some cultural context, probably it will be able to identify how frequently they appear in the text, but it may not be really accurate. I tried several times, but the accuracy rate is pretty low for ChatGPT for generating codes. It's not really great. But if you're doing a text analysis, it'll be able to do a decent job. I don't think there'll be many problems. I think you won't face many problems. If you are doing text analysis, go ahead and do this. But if you are doing a proper discourse analysis or proper, let's say, thematic analysis or coding, I think you may not. I mean, it will be difficult to depend on ChatGPT to generate the codes because it will be entirely text driven. May not be able to give you a good idea about what is happening. Uh, then synthesize information. If you put together and ask it to generate a summary, it will be able to do that. But it will also be able to synthesize, let's say, your uh, image data with your written data. It can synthesize information. Even for if you can give proper audio data, also it can synthesize information with written or textual data. So audio, pictures, and text data, written data, all three can be synthesized by ChatGPT. It is possible to do that. You just have to upload and ask it to synthesize information. It will do it for you. Yeah, there won't be any problem. So somebody can ask here, can I do that? Then evaluate some of my students' texts using ChatGPT and a set of rubrics. Absolutely. So you can put together all the answers submitted by students. Of course, they should be in text format. Once you generate a file out of, let's say, 30 or 40 students, you can give rubrics to ChatGPT and ask to assign a score out of 30 or 20 or 10 to each student and give feedback about their writing in terms of organization, content, and grammar. It will do that. It will do in just minutes. So you can do that. Can you use it for citations, proofreading, revision, and feedback? You can, but you have to declare. For revision, you have to declare. For feedback, you don't have to, but for revision, definitely you have to declare. Proofreading, to an extent, yes. Citations, that you don't have to declare an answer because if you do a kind of a decent job, it'll ask you what kind of citation format you are using, but you have to provide information, so it will be double work. I don't use it to use ChatGPT for citations. That's why, because it doesn't have access to databases. Then next thing you can do with, you can ask ChatGPT to generate what is called a design for the study. We can do that. Let's try and do that. Let's say, can you talk about the design, a suitable design for my study, which focuses on translanguaging practices in ESL classrooms of Assam. So the use of qualitative case study design. I mean, case study design in itself is qualitative. So it's slightly odd to write qualitative case design. You always write case study design and then do more. That's why I told you should be careful. Qualitative study with ethnographic elements, translanguaging, multiple classrooms. You can focus on multiple classrooms across school types. Okay. Possible, yeah. Can you tell me if this can be a multiple case study? Now it's considering if this is possible to do as a multiple case study. So it will give us some information. Now it's accessing in 2008. I don't know if it's a copyright violation for translanguaging. I mean, for ChatGPT if it's a violation. So it says that 3 to 5 ESL classrooms, and each one will be a case. Urban versus rural schools, government versus private schools, tribal versus non-tribal, primary versus these variations you can consider. It's possible to do that. And then data collection tools can be, methods can be classroom observation, teacher interviews, student focus groups, lesson plan, materials analysis. So it's giving you a kind of a broad idea about it, but here the one thing that you must remember is that uh, it, it depends on you. I mean, like if you are aware what to do, probably ChatGPT will be able to help you. Let's say if I'm not aware what each of these terms mean, let's say case study what it means, ethnography what it means, multiple case study what it means, ChatGPT won't be able to help me. It's the same with, for example, Grammarly. If you know grammar well, Grammarly helps. If you don't know grammar at all, Grammarly may make your writing really funny. Okay, it may look really stupid. So when you are doing it, make sure that you know the terms well. You know you have read well. You have understood these key terms well, and then ask ChatGPT. Then verify whether it's actually fitting how you perceive or how you visualize the study. Okay, something like that you should be clear about. And then it tells you where the quantitative component, where the qualitative component. If it say that mixed methods, it tells you what you need for each type. So if it say that mixed methods design, what kind of mixed methods design would be appropriate. So if it is a mixed methods design, what kind would you recommend? So you can have mixed methods design are of different types. You can have parallel, you can have explanatory, you can have parallel, concurrent, and convergent designs. So it tells you also with details saying that convergent parallel design will be appropriate here, and it shows Creswell and Plano-Clark, which is accurate. It's not fake. It's not fake data. It's accurate. So you have to check whether this is fitting the kind of research you are doing. Well, you will be able to answer the questions following this design. So think about it very clearly when you use for research purposes for doing the design of the study. Coding, I have to show you. If you want me to show you, I will show you how to do the coding here using this. But if you upload a document here, you go to this plus and then upload a document here and then ask it to find patterns or codes for the category, then probably it will do that. But it has not been very accurate. Beyond text data and some context, it has not been able to do a great job. So I have my own doubts about the codes generated by ChatGPT, but you can start using. Probably it will learn from you and get better at it. But make sure that you rewrite the entire thing, because if it is ChatGPT generated, someday you will be caught, and that will be a bad day. Then statistical techniques, it helps you analyze data statistically. So if you have some data that you want to analyze statistically, you can ask what would be appropriate. So you see that in a pre-post control experimental pre-post two-group design, what kind of statistical procedures should I use? One pre-post difference, baseline comparisons, then within group comparisons pre-post, and then between group comparisons, then effect size measurement. Absolutely spot on with everything. And you have some explanation on the right side, which you can use when you analyze your data. Okay. And also, if you have both types of data, qualitative and quantitative data, where you are bringing them together and where you are trying to find meaning, that kind of thing can also be done with ChatGPT or Copilot. Copilot has a lot of, and right now it bought like $1 billion of database from Taylor and Francis. So it has a lot of social science and humanities data with it. So please start using Copilot if you are using generative AI tools. So you can create a triangulation matrix where you can bring together methodological or theoretical, what kind of triangulation will be appropriate. You can ask and generate information and then go on to write it. But triangulation is a very tricky thing because it goes way beyond what is mentioned in the text. So I think direct human kind of interference, or not interference, monitoring, continuous monitoring is necessary from a human being, somebody who has some expertise in triangulation. What it does also, if you are interviewing people, if you have a kind of long interviews, you have tools that can summarize the entire interview. So you can use those tools to understand what happened in the interview, the gist of the interview, the main patterns in the interview. If you, whatever you want, you can generate from that. So read and present or something like that, you will find that online, it's available. That tool you can attach to any meeting. For example, today we have a meeting, I attach to it. At the end of it, it will give me in the form I want. I say that make a 2-slide presentation on that, it will make it and give me the gist, or give me in the form of MS Word. It will immediately create that MS Word format and share with me, whatever happened in the meeting. So if you want to handle oral data, this can be also a very good platform. And you can do it with like tools like Copilot or ChatGPT. You can also use to have a conversation and talk about it, or ask teachers to have a conversation and talk about something. You can ask what is the gist of that conversation. It will give you the gist easily. Next is course I showed you. If you look at research, what has happened is mostly research has happened in Asia. It has not happened in that scale. I mean, at that level in Europe or any other Anglophone country. So we produce a lot more. I mean, we are more engaged with Gen AI tools than the West right now. And there's some positive impact on our instructions, our instructional design, our performance, effective motivational states, and higher order thinking. I have my doubt about the higher order thinking, but yeah. And then the impact on positive writing, I published a paper also. Some of you are aware of that paper where I talked about how my students learned academic writing and they did well when they were asked to use ChatGPT for formative purposes. And more better reading engagement and more self-regulation. If you find very difficult to read, probably you can read along ChatGPT. That makes your life much easier. Chat and it can also reduce chat speaking anxiety, an area I think which requires further exploration. People who are anxious, probably they learn to use language much better when they are left with their with an AI tool on their own. They learn from, like I was learning Assamese from Copilot and ChatGPT. Ethical consideration is an area that may require some more investigation. For specific language skills like listening, speaking, reading, writing, very specifically you take one part, then that can also be explored. And impact on critical thinking, somebody pointed out earlier, creativity, attention span, and all that. That also requires some more investigation. We don't have many papers on that. And very few longitudinal studies right now. If you can do 1.5 year long studies, that'll be really useful. Assessment, artificial intelligence literacy is a major topic. AI literacy, Gen AI literacy is also attached to this. So you can work on this. There are several scales you can use and then work on this. And then these are some of the other areas that you can work on, like teachers' practices in schools, utilization in multilingual contexts, quality of AI-generated tasks for teachers, impact on research output. A lot of these areas are quite exciting, and these areas can be connected. When you can have three different angles, like it can be theoretical in nature, it can be methodological in nature, it can be pedagogical in nature. So if you think about contribution, you can think of theoretically how it's contributing into a theoretical paper, methodologically how they're contributing, how you're able to do it for research and all that, how that improves your writing or research. That can be one area. Pedagogical is when you take it to the classroom and apply what happens there. That can also be researched. This is a platform I would like you to join. If you have not joined, please join this platform. This is a platform on Facebook. A lot of teachers, including your professor here, she is part of this group, and some of you are already there. You can join that group and benefit from our discussions on sharing whatever we do. I stop here. You have any questions or want me to demonstrate anything, please go ahead and ask me. I'll do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Santosh. That was such a wonderful introduction to many things possible. Some things, that our generation is not really very used to. So it's very scared and suspicious of AI. And it's really wonderful to see how many different kinds of things you can make AI do. So I would like to request the research scholars here and faculty to ask questions, or if you want something. I think I would, I'm sure everyone will agree that if convenient for you, given your time, we would like another session, some more demonstration on of how some of these things can be actually done in practice. So there's a question now for you.
There will be some difference. So, Dipto, you asked if there is a difference. There will be minor differences. I don't think there will be major difference, but some of these are legally, because they are in trouble. Like right now, several cases have been filed against ChatGPT. That way, I think I know um, Copilot is in a better position because it bought articles worth $1 billion from Taylor and Francis. That means it has a huge database, and that it can use for giving you information. It has not been able to do that entirely, but it will be able to do that soon. So I think you will get some fresh information on chat on Copilot, and Copilot gives you further kind of reading list. Even Gemini also does that, but ChatGPT generally doesn't give you suggestions as such for reading lists and where you will go from here. That kind of list is not really available on ChatGPT right now. It has started giving you citations, but you have to be very careful with this, because earlier people complained that even they have published papers on ChatGPT giving fake data. So you should be careful with that. Yeah, Jyotirmoy, go on.
Thank you, Dr. Mahapatra. Sorry, in the first part of the talk, I was actually in an auto rickshaw, so I may have missed a couple of things you said. So I'll ask my question. I teach language and critical thinking, and with my colleagues who teach critical thinking, I often this is something that we keep discussing a lot, and your talk was fascinating, and I'm sure you have been thinking about these questions. So our students write papers. So I work at Ashoka University in Delhi, and we train them to write papers from day one. And what I'm coming to is our classes, or any critical thinking class, began fundamentally by thinking them the idea of originality in research, right? And originality, particularly in humanities and social sciences. For example, in some way or the other, we'll tell students that, okay, originality here does not mean you invent something or you discover something unlike in the sciences, but you start thinking argumentatively by using your own context, by using your own situations, own life experiences, etc. So they may be reading a post-colonial text from Algeria, but the idea is they should be able to think of their location and connect it to that. Why is black skin white mask saying something like that, and how me sitting at Gauhati connects to it, and that could be the topic of a research paper, right? So when now students are using ChatGPT and all other things, I'm not skeptical about ChatGPT at all. When students are thinking, there are two questions that come to our minds. I mean, in terms of us teachers discussing this, one, some of the teachers think that it ChatGPT being used for brainstorming is extremely dangerous, because brainstorming is when they're actually finding these questions to think about. So if we tell ChatGPT, okay, this is the text black skin, white mask in this context. How do I talk about this in India? And somebody says, and ChatGPT will tell you, okay, you can think about caste, upper caste and lower caste, and write my paper there. So I am not making the connection between race and caste. ChatGPT is for me. So is my it's a way around me doing the thinking as a student. So that's one predicament, that's one problem that we are facing. Two, many teachers would say brainstorming is fine, but what about substantiation? If ChatGPT increasingly, as you have shown, it knows so many sources, so if it uses all the sources to substantiate for me, then I am not having to substantiate my argument at all. I'm saying this is my argument, fine, this is my original argument, but they're giving me all the text for the paper that I just mentioned out of the top of my head. They will be substantiating it with Ambedkar, with Gandhi, with their debate, etc. Right? So I am not really getting into caste studies at all. So where do you stand in all of this, and what is the way? My idea basically is that the student still needs to be trained in thinking. What if you have thought about this? How do we still teach them thinking even as they are using all these excellent mediums? Thank you.
So that's a nice question actually, and very highly thought provoking for me, for everybody here. I think. See, when you the problem happens when students use ChatGPT and then start asking questions like, "Can you generate some ideas related to this topic and relate how Habermas can be used for, let's say, interpreting caste discrimination in the country?" Or how to use, let's say, Gramsci's prison notebooks for analyzing Gandhi's something. So it will immediately do it because it has access to both, and it will immediately do it, and you may not have to generate those ideas. So what I will here recommend is you start with accepting ChatGPT as a part of the teaching learning process in the classroom. Say that all of you, we will use ChatGPT in the classroom. Okay, that's an acceptable practice. Don't if you start discriminating against ChatGPT, the problem will be they will start hiding from you and then submit to you and things and all. So that is one. Two is there are easy answers to the questions you are asking. So maybe there is a way how you can actually make them think. I mean, assuming that they will do it in the classroom, what you can do is, let's say you take an image and a video clip, okay, and a podcast and a written text, okay. All four of these things, let's say I'm talking about multimedia integration here. You take different types of media and then bring them together to class and say that, listen to this podcast and now look at this image and read this text. Can you synthesize these three and come up with two questions that we would like to answer here? Okay, something like that. So what will happen is ChatGPT may not be able to actually process, this synthesizing information from multiple sources. It may not be able to do that as such. It's very difficult for it. Right now, at least you are in a safe space. When it does that, we will think about how to overcome that kind of problem. But here, I think it's good to go with multimedia. One, allowing ChatGPT to the classroom, saying, and you determining where to support students, where to ask students to use ChatGPT. So I make it a norm in my classes. I think almost all classes I encourage the use of ChatGPT, but I use it at a point where I think will help them. For example, they answer some questions about, let's say, how to use. I was teaching today how to write the results method section of a technical report, and when they identify it from a piece of text, I asked them, can you identify from this piece of text on the screen, which are the indicators of, let's say, finding a gap from the literature review? How do you know that? Then they identified this is. So I say that, can you ask ChatGPT if it can provide you more, vocabulary or more hints, textual hints that can help you identify the gaps. That can help you write the gaps from a literature review. So it gave them vocabulary saying that, however, or something like that. So it started making a list of words that they came across. So it stopped there. Then I said that, okay, now keep your ChatGPT aside. Now come back to me. So something like that. So periodically, if you train them, this is where it is going to be helpful. This is where it's going to be going to help you in thinking. kind of originally and ethically, and you can do well as a researcher, probably this is something that you have to teach them explicitly. If you are implicit, probably it may not be conveyed. So I think that's the way forward right now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else with a question or a dilemma?
Yeah, you can ask about what is acceptable, what is not, what is good, what is bad, what will land you in trouble, and what is okay. All these questions are welcome. If you have any, you let me know now, or you can message me or email me, or whichever way you want to reach out. I think you can reach out. I think most of you have access to my WhatsApp number and email ID, and a lot of quite a few of you are friends with me on social media. So you can also let me know if you have any questions related to this topic. I would love to hear from you, and I love to address those questions, because these are important questions and we should do that together.
Thank you. That was wonderful. I have a question. It might sound like a silly one. Um, when I, your student, researcher, sorry, who interviewed me for your project, I told you this is what triggered, my question, my request to you. So she referred to she said, we have this software which can do it for us. She was referring to transcribing the interview and then generating codes and categories. So I don't think I remember which particular tool she was referring to. So what was that?
So generally, see, the codes and other things can be done. I showed you how you can do that.
Yeah.
That's very easy. That's not very difficult. And you can do it manually, and you can verify with ChatGPT, or ChatGPT can do, and you can go on and verify on Taguet. Taguet is freely available. It's a qualitative data analysis software. I would encourage everybody to use that. That's free and it's very easy. And it can be multiple people can be. Let's say 3 people are working on one project. All 3 can work on that one platform, and they can be added to a single document. Or if you are supervising your student, she can do the coding, and you can monitor how codes are being generated, and how much work she has done or he has done can be monitored from home. You can look at it and see how she is coding, how he is coding. It's very easy. So apart from that, the transcription, I used a Google Recorder. It's called Google Recorder. It's an app on Google. I'll show you. It looks like this. Okay, it's an app. It's called Google Recorder, and if you download and install it in your phone, it transcribes the entire thing that is there. And the transcription quality is so good that even full stops and commas are also automated. It does the work. You don't have to do that, and you can install Indian English in that, so it can transcribe for Indian English. And
That's wonderful.
and then if you want to translate that to let's say if something you have done already and it is already there, let's say it has been transcribed in Assamese, and then you want to convert it to English, I think then you should use ChatGPT or Gemini. But be aware that what you are feeding might go to ChatGPT, so you should be aware of what you are giving ChatGPT, because it takes almost everything unless you change the setting and completely uh, forbid it from taking anything from you. That you can also do. So that's also a possibility. But use this recorder because this has been extremely accurate. One more way of transcribing is to go to Google Docs. It has a transcriptor. Are you aware of that?
No, I've never used it.
Yeah, just give me a second. I'll show you. It's quite accurate, but you have to do the comma, full stop, other things. You have to do that part. So here I go. I'll share that document. This can also be used for transcription. You can try this. This is easy. And you go to tools here, and in tools you have voice typing here.
Mm.
Okay, and then you click on this. It's US English. You can change that to whatever
Yeah.
English type you want. You say English in
English.
India,
Mm.
and then I click on that.
Mm.
Now you say something, it'll start typing.
Yeah, I'd like to know more about. Yeah, you said start typing, so it started typing. Start typing.
Can you start typing for me?
Great.
Yeah, so it does the job.
Yeah,
So
and I have never explored this. I mean, I haven't probably gone down the tools menu to the end to be
yeah,
able to see that.
so you once you type it there entirely, you can take that file and then use it, upload it to Taguet, and then start coding. And together you can code, because if it's a two people are coding, probably it's a good idea. It will be robust coding. So I would use. I mean, for my PhD students, we use Taguet right now. So I would encourage everybody else to do for literature review and data analysis. Both, I think Taguet would be a very good option.
Yeah, because I hear you when you say, I mean, you've said that several times, about cautioning about relying on ChatGPT to do to generate your codes. So, so
Yeah,
that's,
that
I want
danger
to
is
ask you
there.
that.
That danger is there, and it may take, when the data you are feeding it. Feeding your data. Okay, that's a dangerous thing.
Okay,
So
that one.
that's something that will pop up. Because what I did was, earlier, whatever from ChatGPT, I put it and turn it in and try to identify if it has been copied from, identify the AI generated content. Then it kind of identified two portions that are taken from, let's say, two university submissions by students. How did that happen? Because students fed the data to ChatGPT to see whether it is right or wrong. ChatGPT kept a portion of it and generated the content and gave it to me. So your content, what you are feeding, can be generated by probably somebody else is generating, and your content will go there,
Oh,
unless you change the setting
yeah,
there
that's
to
something we
clear
need
the
to
thing.
know. Yeah, the implications are
Yeah, implications
very
are there.
serious.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. I'm aware that we are well over time, 10 minutes over time. So, unless someone has a specific question, I think we can bring this meeting to a close. Is there anybody who has a very pressing question? Otherwise, Dr. Mahapatra has very generously asked you to get in touch with him. So, if some thoughts come to your mind later, or you have specific questions, I can also, share them with him, or you could perhaps connect with him directly. So I
Yeah.
think yeah, somebody.
No, I don't think there is anybody, so we can
All
close.
right. So thank you very much, Santosh, for doing this